Hello, I'm Emily Barker. At a time when the whole country is looking at how to better resource schools, the New South Wales Government has found a way to cut funding to thousands of the state's non-government schools. To discuss this further, I'm joined by John Quessy, General Secretary of the New South Wales ACT Independent Education Union, Margaret Hogan, Principal of Sacred Heart Catholic Primary School in Cabramatta, and Briony Scott, Principal of Wenona School in North Sydney. Thank you for joining us. John, starting with you, what is the government proposing?
Well, the New South Wales Government is proposing to slash $67 million from the funding towards non-government schools, Catholic and independent schools in New South Wales. It's proposing to do this without consultation and proposing to do it immediately so that those cuts would come into effect from the beginning of next year. Over and above that, this is the first cut. They intend to continue this over a period of 4 years.
So, Briony, what will this mean for the thousands of families that choose a non-government education for their children?
Well, there are very real and practical implications of a decision of this nature, not least of which is if the money is taken away and the government aren't giving it, then it needs to come from increased school fees. And we predict that this will have quite a significant effect on the families that are currently attending non-government schools. Other implications include the fact that we may need to reduce staffing to help cover costs. There are class sizes may need to go up. It affects the capacity of parents to choose schools now. They don't have quite as much choice as they had. And there's a security of planning that most families would like to have in terms of being able to make decisions about where their children go.
Margaret, what are the effects on a typical primary school?
Well, in a school such as mine, I think it would severely impact on staffing, and that means not only on the teachers, the class teachers, but also the specialist teachers and the support staff who deliver programs in literacy and numeracy to children who are most at risk with their learning, children who really need that kind of help. And all those programs would more than likely need to be shelved, and that's a tragedy for many schools.
So, John, the ladies have touched on cuts to staffing. Is that ultimately where it's at?
Absolutely. This has the potential to slash 1,000 jobs out of our sector. If it doesn't cause that level of job loss, it will certainly create more insecure employment because full-time positions will become part-time, more and more casual positions will be made available because people will look at any capacity to cut a cost.
How are funding decisions normally made?
Well, there's a long tradition in New South Wales, and it's set in legislation, that the non-government schools are funded at 25% of the cost of educating a child in a government school. So there is a mechanism by which the state government determines what it costs to educate a child in a government school, and non-government schools get 25% of that. That's then distributed amongst those non-government schools according to a formula that was established in 1984, where there were 12 categories of schools. So some categories, some individual schools will get a greater proportion of that than others. But the 25% is the figure that is set in legislation.
Why is it so important for families to have a choice about where they send their children to school?
Well, I think it's important that parents have the choice to send their children to faith-based schools. Catholic education in Australia has a very strong and long history of delivering quality education to all children, particularly the poor and marginalised. And Catholic schools in particular are often part of a bigger parish community, and that parish community is part of the larger church. So it's about belonging and choosing where you want to send your children.
And Briony?
The non-government sector is an extremely diverse sector, so we have people from all walks of life who send or elect to send their children to a non-government school. In fact, 70% of our non-government schools fall under the median SES. It's a big number. So given the choice, people want to be able to elect where they send their child to school. I don't know why parents send them, any child to any given school. It might be because they've got a special learning program. It might be because it's a local school and they want to be able to walk to school. It might be because they've got a specialist program in sport. The fact is that parents in Australia have the right to choose where they will send their children.
And it's all about choice.
Absolutely.
Having the choice. And John, how does this make sense in the context of the Gonski review?
Well, it's totally at odds with the Gonski review. The Gonski report, or the review into the funding of schools, was just that. It was a review of the funding of all schools, government and non-government. And what it did, at the very least, is it began a conversation in Australian society about how Australian people want to see those schools funded. This is quite opposed to that. The Gonski report is basically about trying to find a way of getting more money into schools, and this is about ripping some $67 million out. It's done at a particularly appalling time. Staffing is done, budgets are done for 2013, and now schools are told they've got to find these massive savings. And it's been done without any attempt at an impact study. The state government seems to have complete contempt for the running of those organisations that are non-government schools.
So what's the union planning to do about this?
Well, the very first thing that we're doing is we are urging our members to contact their local MP and to let their local MP know that these proposals need absolutely to be trashed. They need to be revoked. We want them also to have those conversations and to have that dialogue with the parent communities, because I think that this has been done this is a complete disregard of the local electorate, and I think that parents need to know. They need to know what those impacts will be. And if the O'Farrell government does not revoke this proposal, then we will quite happily and proudly organise a day of protest to let them know what we and the New South Wales non-government school community think about it.
Thank you for joining us, and of course if you'd like to have your say, go to the IEU website.